Hey there, it's time for your YouTube activity for this week. Good to see you guys. This week we're watching and listening to a guitar player named Greg Rekus. I got my Greg Rekus t-shirt on right now. You'll see that he's got a special stage he uses. He's got a special way he plays. He's a really interesting guy. I hope that you will like him. The song that we're going to be listening to from Greg is called The Worst. I could not find lyrics for this song on the internet, and as you probably know, my hearing isn't all that great. I'm pretty good at hearing music, but I'm not that great at hearing words when you talk or when people sing. I think this song is about how each time something bad happens in your life, I think it might be about romantic stuff, like getting your heart broken or whatever. Each time it seems like the worst it could possibly be. He says the first time is the worst, then he talks about it. Then he says the second time is the worst, and then later in the song he says the third time is the worst. I think he's talking about the fact that when something bad happens, especially if it's a romantic breakup, every time it happens it feels like the worst. I could be wrong. I hope that you will listen carefully to the words just in case I'm really off base about that. So anyway, let's learn a little bit about Greg right now. Here is Greg Rekus. He is not a very tall guy. It kind of looks like he's playing a really big guitar, but actually it's a normal size guitar, and he's just not a very big guy. He's about 5'4", 5'5", something like that. I want you to notice the stage that he is standing on. He actually brings that stage with him when he goes on tour, when he performs places. In fact, he performed at our school once because I had heard him downtown at the Red Raven Espresso Parlor, like a coffee place in downtown Fargo. And I just thought he was really interesting, really energetic and kind of fascinating performer. And I sent him an email later when I heard he was going to be in town again and asked him if he would come to school and play for us. So he did. And he brought that stage with him. He put it on the top of his van and he carried it in by himself. He wouldn't let me help him because he said it was easier if he just did it himself. Anyway, the reason he brings the stage is because he uses the stage like an instrument. You might be able to see there's a yellow thing and a red thing on the top of that stage. Those are tambourines, like you might have played when you were in an elementary music class or something. They kind of have a jingling sound. So he attaches those tambourines to the stage and he stomps on the stage with his feet. He stomps and jumps and stuff like that to kind of make drum sounds. And he changes kind of where he stomps on the stage to produce different sounds. Anyway, it's really interesting. He's a really unique guy. So he's not super famous. His most popular video on YouTube only has 200,000 views. That's a lot of views still, but it's not a lot compared to a lot of people. But he gets lots of gigs. You know, he goes around the country of Canada, where he's from, and also the country of America, and even Europe, and does a lot of concerts, usually for small crowds. You know, he doesn't make a lot of money, but he's a solo act, does his own thing. Some things I think he's notable for is, number one, when he sings and plays and jumps on that stage, he sounds like more than one person. He doesn't sound like just one guy. It sounds like he's kind of a band all by himself. He describes his style of music as punkoustic. So it's not country and it's not pop and it's not rock. It's kind of like punk rock. But punk rock is usually like a whole band, and punk rock is usually played with electric instruments like electric guitar and electric bass and stuff like that. But he just does his on an acoustic guitar. Acoustic means you don't have to plug it in to sound good. So he says, well, it's acoustic and it's punk, so I call it punkoustic. By the way, punk rock is kind of like rebellious, in your face kind of rock. Is maybe the best way to describe it. Next, he is from Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada, which is only about 3 or 4 hours from here. Winnipeg is a pretty big city in southern Manitoba, and that's where he's from. He has a normal job too, where he makes most of his money. He does like sound and things for concerts and other special events around the Winnipeg area. So when there's going to be a big concert or something, he might be the guy who adjusts all the knobs and levers and sets up the speakers and sets up all the chords and stuff like that for things like that, or for conventions or presentations, that sort of thing. That's where he makes most of his money. And then he saves up that money so he can go out on tour and maybe lose a little bit of money because it costs money to stay in hotels and buy gas and sort of that sort of thing. I think it's neat that Greg uses my favorite brand of guitar. Last week I told you that Gibson was one of my favorite brands. Well, my very favorite brand of guitar is Taylor. I love Taylor guitars. I will show you one of my Taylors a little bit later in this video, and I'll show you how you know it's a Taylor guitar when you see it. Anyway, I just think Taylors are great. They sound nice, they're made well, they're American made. Generally, American made instruments are better than instruments made in other countries. All right, a few things I think we can learn from Greg. If you adjust your eyes to the column right above my head here. Number one, the appropriate use of the thumb. When you are a pretty good guitar player, sometimes you take your thumb and you put it over the top of the neck to mute string 6. He does that quite a bit on some of his chords. For example, the first chord in this song is a C chord. And as you probably know, C chords are not supposed to have string 6 in them. You're supposed to avoid string 6 when you strum. Well, if you just mute string 6 with your thumb, you can just play all the strings and it'll still sound fine. So he does that kind of thing quite a bit. Another thing that he does is number 2, he doesn't tune his guitar like you and I do. He makes all of his strings sound lower than usual. So his string 6, instead of being an E, he makes it a D. And his string 5, instead of making it the note A, he makes it a G. He makes all of his strings sound one step, one letter lower than usual, which makes all the chords sound lower too. And the reason he does that is he said it fits his voice better. He likes to sing kind of high, but if he tuned his guitar the normal way, it would be too high for his voice. So he just lowers the whole guitar a little bit so he can sing more easily, more comfortably. And number 3, as we already kind of discussed, you don't have to have a whole band to sound like a whole band. You can be imaginative and energetic and so forth like Greg Rekus, and you can sound like more than one person all by yourself. And that's pretty cool. Here are your questions for this week. After you've watched the 2 videos, these will be your questions. Number 1, why do you like or dislike this performance? That's the same question I will always ask you. And please be specific about it. Please make sure you don't just say, I like this a lot, period. Please tell me why, and make sure it's a complete sentence. A sentence that starts with a capital letter and ends with a period or exclamation point or question mark. And think about the things that your English teachers have taught you in the past about what a complete sentence is, because that matters to me. I want it to be a complete sentence, not a run-on sentence, not a really short sentence, a complete sentence. Number 2, I'm asking what is the style of music you don't like and why? Last week I asked you what is your favorite style of music. This week I'm asking you to tell me what's maybe your least favorite, or just any kind of music that you're not a fan of, any style of music you're not a fan of. And just like number 1, please make sure it's a complete sentence. So you could say, I really don't like rock and roll music because it's just too loud and harsh and crazy, period. That would be an okay answer for number 2. And then again, number 3 is the same question I always ask you. But also, again, please make sure it's a complete sentence. So tell me what's making you mad, sad, or glad today in a complete sentence. For example, I am mad today because the sun isn't shining and that makes me feel a little down, period. That would be an okay answer for number 3. All right. Let's talk about Greg Rekus's guitar playing. First of all, he plays Taylor guitars, as I mentioned just a minute ago. I love Taylor guitars. They're easy to play, they sound great, and they have a certain look. So one thing you will notice that is the same between Greg's guitar and my guitar is this thing. It's called the pick guard. Pick guard. It is a piece of plastic, or it could be made out of something different too, but in this case I think it's plastic. It guards my guitar from my pick. It keeps my pick from scratching up the wood of the guitar. So Taylor guitars have a distinctive shape to their pick guard. It's kind of got a little pointy part down here. It's kind of swoopy with a little point at the end. Taylor guitars also have a certain shape for their head. This part is called the head. And there's kind of three little scoops up here. Kind of looks like an M. So Taylor heads look like that. Plus it says Taylor right there. So anyway, when I hear really good bands or I'm watching really good bands, I often try to figure out what kind of guitar they're playing. And if it has these two things, then I know, hey, that's a Taylor guitar. No wonder they sound good. That's a great brand. Yeah, okay. So one of the things I want to talk about with Greg's playing is his strum pattern. He plays this drum pattern a lot in this song. He goes down, up, down, up, down, up. Remember, this is a symbol for down. This is a symbol for up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And these dots here mean to repeat it, to loop it. So he goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, ding, digga, digga, ding, digga, digga, ding, digga, digga, ding, digga, digga, ding, but super fast. Way faster and way better. Okay, so he does that quite a bit. Watch for that. He also tunes his guitar differently than most people. We just talked about that in the video a minute ago as well. So instead of string 6 being an E, and string 5 being A, and D for string 4, G for string 3, B for string 2, and E for string 1, instead of those being the notes, he makes all of them a little bit lower. So when he plays like the C chord that happens a lot in this song, it doesn't sound like the C chord we use. And by the way, here's that thumb thing that he does. He puts his thumb on the top so that his string 6 is muted. So he can just strum all the strings. And it only sounds like 5. Okay? So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to tune my guitar lower. I'm going to make my string 6 into a D instead of an E. And my string 5 into a G instead of an A. G is one lower than A in music. I'm going to make my string 4 a C instead of a D, and so on. I'm going to lower everything one step, one letter lower. All right, I'm going to use my headstock tuner to do this. I showed you how to use a headstock tuner in class not too long ago. So instead of E, I don't know if you can see my tuner, but I'm going to make it a D. Touchy. I'm going to make my string 5 into a G instead of an A. I'm going to make my string 4 into a C instead of a D. I'm going to make my string 3 into an F instead of a G. I'm going to make my string 2 into an A instead of a B. And I'm going to make my string 1 into a D instead of an E. Let's see if I got it right. It's still a little bit off. I'm going to try to fix that up a little bit here. Guitars don't like to be in alternate tunings. They don't like to change from the normal standard tuning. They get a little bit temperamental about that. They get a little fussy. Alright, here it is again. So, the chord that Greg plays the most in this song is a C chord. And it's going to sound lower than normal so that he can sing lower than normal. And it'll be comfortable for his voice. So, yeah, I think that's all you need to know here. After you're done watching this video right now, make sure you do the one that says watch this second. That's the performance by Greg doing the worst. And then do the thing that says do this last, which is taking the quiz with those 3 questions. All right. I hope you enjoy this, but if you don't, it's okay. Just tell me why you're not enjoying it. Give me your honest opinion using complete sentences, and we're good. All right. Thanks, guys. You guys, I forgot about jokes. Last week I forgot about jokes, and I don't want you to miss out on them. So here's some dad jokes to end this little video. Why is it easy for chicks to talk? Because talk is cheap. Chicks like chickens. What is a mouse's favorite game? Hide and squeak. Huh? An owl lost its voice, but it didn't give a hoot. Final one. What is the difference between a fish and a guitar? You can tune a guitar, but you can't tune a fish. Enjoy the video.